Hey guys, and welcome back to my channel. So this week we're going to be finishing up the final update of I found a secret room under my kitchen. I think something lives there. And yeah, let's get started with it. The last foray into the house hurt me badly. Nestled within a map of bruises were thin wounds, the kind made when you tie your arm with string and pull far too hard for far too long. Those long, bruisey welts continued to swell long after I left the house, until they too split my skin open. Under the shades of my skin, puffy white and angry red, and ominous purple, was a bright, wicked yellow. Like I had jaundice. Over the course of several days, I watched the yellow radiate outward like blood poisoning. Under these all other circumstances, returning to the house unprepared seemed especially idiotic. So I did my research. First, perhaps unsurprisingly, there's never been a children's book called The People Who Come After You. Second, I combed through every available public record and found nothing to indicate that I've ever been married or had a domestic partnership. I don't even have any joint accounts on my credit report. Third, I bought the house over a year ago. The deed transferred to me several months before I remembered even seeing the house, let alone buying it. Finally, I found the person who sold me the house. Her name was Martha Clark. To my dismay, she died several months ago. Fortunately, her daughter is still very much alive. She invited me to her house, which turned out to be an assisted living facility. The moment she answered the door, I knew something was wrong with her. She looked both distant and wary. She wasn't all there, but had just enough of her wits about her to know she was being followed. "Hello. I'd like to talk to you about your mom's old house," I said. "Of course you do," was the response. She gave me a pained smile. "I think it must be mold, or something in the paint. Paint can do strange things to people. What did it make you do?" Unsure of how to respond, I stammered. "I found pictures of myself with people I don't remember. They look like my family. But I don't have one." "Got to be mold," Miranda fretted. "A hallucinative fungus. You should fumigate the house." "I will. Did you experience anything like mine?" "Mom did." A long, nervous pause took root and spread. When she finally spoke again, a quaver entered her voice. "Martha was a terrible mother, but became especially unhinged on Miranda's 12th birthday. That was the year Martha became convinced that Miranda had a sister named Sarah. Except Miranda was an only child. There had never been a Sarah, or any other sibling, but Martha was panicked, inconsolable mess. As the summer sun blazed overhead, she tore the house apart, looking for Sarah. But as soon as evening fell, she forgot everything. She forgot Sarah, forgot about her outburst, even forgot about Miranda's birthday. When Miranda asked if she was okay, Martha said, "I'm fine. Why wouldn't I be?" "You were crying about Sarah." "Who's Sarah?" She went to bed calm and happy, but by noon the next day she was once again screaming hysterical mess. For 2 weeks, this was the pattern. Around midday, Martha began to scream and rant for a child that didn't exist, call for help, and eventually demand birth records, school records, and all manner of things. This was all to no avail. Sarah did not exist. Therefore, no one had any records for Sarah. By nightfall, Martha invariably returned to her usual self. Martha's midday madness finally accumulated in the wholehearted destruction of the kitchen floor. There was a room underneath, according to Miranda, a strange room filled with furniture and yellow lights. "Sarah's down there. All of the Sarahs are down there. I don't know which one is mine." Martha descended under the kitchen floor and disappeared. Miranda waited, crying, until a man came into the house. She didn't know him, but he immediately went down after Martha. Miranda waited until long past dark, but he did not come back. Her mother, however, returned in the middle of the night. "Don't come down," Martha whispered. "Stay up here. I will be back for you later." Miranda stayed in her room for 3 days, emerging only to drink tap water from the sink. I don't know why, she told me. I don't know why I hid. I was old enough to know better. She feared and cooed about this for a while. It's because I saw things that weren't real because of the mold, right? I said. You couldn't help it. The soothed Miranda continued. I went downstairs when I got too hungry. It was nighttime, but it looked like day because there was a big yellow light in the window. But it wasn't really there, Miranda told me. It was the mold making me see things. Like what? Like Sarah. I saw Sarah. She teetered nervously. But not really. There is no Sarah, but I saw her. And I saw 3 other people. 2 were my mother, 1 was a man. He and one of the mothers were hurting the other one. She teetered, shrilling. Isn't that strange? Miranda told me she crept to the front door, but the first mother noticed and asked her where she was going. To the neighbors, Miranda said. The first mother nodded, then returned to torturing the second mother. Her neighbor returned with her, only to find an empty house. She stayed at the neighbor's for the night, and came back in the morning to find Martha cheerfully making breakfast. After relaying the story, Miranda sat in silence for a long time. Her face worked and twitched, sometimes on the verge of a smile, other times close to tears. I went against my gut and pulled out the book. The green lettering reflected the warm daylight. Do you know what this is? Miranda's eyes flickered to the book, then to my face. She smiled absently. That's a fake book. Sarah had it, but Sarah isn't real. I don't remember her. Miranda and her mother lived in peace until Miranda turned 21. Martha had become frail and could no longer attend to Miranda's needs, so she put Miranda in a home. It wasn't as good as this one, she said. This home is much better than all my other homes. No mold here. Her gaze drifted toward the window. She said no more. Her face continued to change in odd ways, running the gamut from ecstasy to despair. After a minute or so, the day nurse came and ushered me away. After I sat in my car with the windows down, a warm breeze drifted through, an incorporeal caress that did little to display the growing heat. The picture book felt heavy on my lap. After several minutes, I opened it. Noon plays with time, and makes far soon, and makes soon far what to do. Remember, he plays games with time. Time doesn't matter when you fight you. Go to Noon's rooms to pay your dues. Those you hurt will pass through too. Remember, whatever you do, that these people will come after you. That was the end. Every page was filled, now with simple couplets and playful, itchy, scratchy drawings, but no worthwhile information. Nothing that told me what had happened to my family, to me, or to the cop. Nothing that told me what those horrific, misshapen creatures were. Nothing except the intimation that I had to have go all Thunderdome on other versions of myself, with no explanation as to how those other versions came to be. And for what? For people I don't even remember? People who, for all intents and purposes, weren't even real? I threw the book in the back seat and drove back to Mariah's. She wasn't home. That was fine. I wanted to be alone. Except I didn't. The moment I entered the house, I panicked. The room was too still, too hot, bathed in too much bright daylight. The car felt similarly repulsive, a small, cramped, overheated little oven, so I decided to go for a walk. Mariah lived downtown. The quaint little district was perfect for an afternoon stroll. A light breeze creatured an illusion of coolness, soon shattered by the heavy heat. Sweat beaded my hairline and soaked the back of my shirt. My scalp felt like a tiny oven, buried under my hair. When I reached up to sweep a leaf back from my forehead, I recoiled in shock. It was painfully hot, like I'd been baking under the noonday sun. I turned onto the main way, momentarily blind as the sun came spilling past a tall brick building. If the house and car felt too hot, too small, the road felt too big, too open, exposed. The sun glared down, bright and unforgiving as the eye of God. I crossed my arms, the better to hide my strange jaundice wounds, and began to walk. I wandered toward the war memorial in a daze. Clusters of benches surrounded the glass, empty except from solitary visitors. I sat at the farthest one and stared down at my arms. Long winding welts spun along my skin, yellow as lemons and painfully raw. Suddenly self-conscious, I glared at the other viewer and froze. He was unremarkably familiar, terribly familiar. It was the man from the Instax photos, the man who told me I had to live somewhere else, because our children couldn't bear to live with me anymore. The husband I recognized, but didn't know. He turned to face me. I froze. Should I go to him? Should I run? What if he doesn't know me? What if he did? His eyes flashed yellow, yellow like the sun, yellow like noon. Horror bloomed in my chest and slithered through my limbs like vines. I stood and ran. Cars, trees, and storefronts ripped past in a multicolored blur. I turned the corner, accidentally clipping a shopper in the process, and sprinted down the street. 3 blocks back and 2 down would take me to Mariah's. And then what? I couldn't bring myself to think about it, so I just ran, ignoring the pounding heat and the sweat streaming down my back. After a small eternity, Mariah's house finally came into view. The tree-choked front yard looked like heaven. I could almost feel the shade gliding over me, cooling my skin, and leaching the burning heat from my scalp. Just as I reached the gate, my husband turned the opposite corner. He walked to the curb and stopped under the neighbor's almond tree, yards away from Mariah's fence, yards from me. With a choked whimper, I fumbled with the gate. My hands shook, jamming the key everywhere but the lock. My husband watched a moment, then strolled over. His feet rustled the grass. Sunlight spilled through the leaves and dappled his hair. The key finally slid into the lock. I turned it just as he cupped the nape of my neck and turned my face in his direction. His skin was scorching hot, his eyes a murky, spoiled gold. "You don't win," he said quietly. "Do you?" I asked. He looked at me a moment longer. Somewhere in my mind, I felt a rustle of memory, a baby bird spreading its wings. He let go. It was like a spell broke. I opened the gate and ran into the yard. When I reached the front door, I turned around and he was still there. Those strange yellow eyes shone and shifted like molten gold. I tried to speak, but the words caught in my throat. What could I ask? And how? Finally I choked. "What happened to you?" "One of them came after you," he answered. "He's still waiting for you." Then he turned and drifted down the street. I waited till he turned the corner and went inside the house. Mariah was in the kitchen, pacing back and forth. As she spoke into the phone. "Wait, do I have to pay for it to be towed? Because it's not mine." I knocked gently on the doorframe. She whirled around, wide-eyed. "How the F did you get in here? Is that your car in my driveway?" A weird, anxious smile spread over Mariah's face. "Mariah, this isn't funny. Get out of my house." She lingered by the counter, expressing equal parts of fear and fury. I reached into my pocket and withdrew my key. "You gave this to me." "I've been here for a week." She ended her call, then dialed another number. "I'm calling 911. You better be effing gone when they get here." I searched her face for any hint of merit or cruelty, any sign that this was a joke, and found none. I only saw anger, shock, and fear. I held my hands up in surrender and stepped back. "I'm going," I said. "I'm going, Mariah." "Who are you?" she snarled. "I'm your sister." "Are you high?" She advanced, forcing me backward through the living room and to the front door. "No," I said, and left. I hurried to my car and screeched out of her driveway. Only when I'd reached the little 2-lane highway that snaked up the mountains to my own home did the import of what just happened hit me. She did not know me. Mariah didn't remember. If noon plays with time, did that mean I was already doomed? That he gets me no matter what I do? So we're going to stop it here, and I'm going to continue reading the rest. So I guess I might post a third video this week, if I can even post 2. I'm not really too sure. We'll see. So we're just going to leave it at this, and you'll have to come in next week or some other time this week, and we'll see what ends up happening. You can go follow me on my Twitter or my Instagram, and I'll have it posted there. So I post a picture of my build or whatever I do that week, so you guys can go there, so that way you guys can know when I upload. So yeah, and don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and don't forget